Welcome to the Clear the Shelf podcast with Chris and Chris, the show that meets at the intersection of education and entertainment to discuss online arbitrage, retail arbitrage, wholesale, and all facets of selling on Amazon. We'll bring you news, tactics, strategies, insights, stories, and interviews to help you grow your Amazon business. And now, here are your hosts, Chris Grant and Chris Racing. What's up, Amazon sellers, and welcome back to the Clear the Shelf podcast with myself and my altiloquent co-host, Chris Racing. Today, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to give you a beginner's guide to online arbitrage on Amazon. We're going to try to make this soup to nuts, nothing left out, as best we can in a podcast form. But before we get started, you guys know the drill. We take a few minutes to get ready for each episode. And if you get something from this episode, do us a favor, hit the like button, subscribe wherever you're listening, or drop a quick comment or ask a question. The only way that we can grow this show is by showing the platforms you all want to hear and see more of what we're doing. And the way to do that is to get you interacting. And of course, we will keep bringing you more education and guests every single week. All right, let's dive in. So this week, we want to kind of give the beginners out there a guide to online arbitrage. We've done the kind of the 0 to 100K guide in the past, and that was a pretty popular episode. But that was really kind of short for the beginner Amazon seller. We covered 0 to 10K very quickly. So this time we're going to go through the whole thing, and we've got to start at the very beginning. Someone who maybe you just found out about selling on Amazon and you don't even know what the difference is between all the models, other than the bickering that you might see on social media about which one is best. So let's talk a little bit about what online arbitrage is and how it's different from other models that are out there. I think there are 4. Now, there are 3 of them under the umbrella of arbitrage, which is buying for low and selling for high. And that's online arbitrage, there's retail arbitrage, and there's wholesale. Now, the wholesale sellers, they will try to separate themselves from the arbitrage sellers. But in reality, it's the same thing. It's just who you're buying from is different. And then there's private label. Now, in my opinion, private label is actually a form of arbitrage. You just do a little extra work. You're arbitraging an item from a factory in China or India or Vietnam. You're slapping a new brand on it. You're putting some nice pictures together, and then you're bringing it over here to the US and selling it at a higher price. It's often, not always, but often, it's a very similar product that maybe you've made some upgrades to compared to what is already currently on the market. But it's not like anyone's going out and creating rocket ships from nothing or anything like that in the private label space. It's just a little bit different. But with online arbitrage, the biggest differentiator is we get to do it from the safety of our office chairs. We get to be behind a keyboard. And one of the reasons that, in my opinion, it's a little bit better than retail arbitrage is, I think, 2. One is I think you can scale a little bit more without a team. We know, based on previous people that we've had on the show, that you can scale retail arbitrage pretty big. But to do it, you've got to have people pounding the pavement. You've got to go out and you got to expand the number of stores that you're hitting. Excuse me. You have to expand the number of stores you're hitting, or you need to expand the regions that you're hitting. We talked to Jassim. He's got people in different spots all around the country that are good for shopping. We've talked to other people that do similar things. With online arbitrage, you're only limited to where the internet will take you and accept your orders. And the other thing, one of the reasons I like online arbitrage is that naturally I'm a night owl. If I had it my way, I would be getting up around the time we're recording this podcast, which is noon. And I would be going to bed at 3 or 4 in the morning. And so there's a lot of Walmarts and Kohl's and Targets near me that when I do my best work, which is, 10 p.m. to 3 a.m., those places are closed. I cannot go shopping. But with online arbitrage, nothing's ever closed. I can always shop. Um, and then we can scale further by, adding in VAs and things like that, all things that we're going to get to. But that's the major differentiator, in my opinion, is just the fact that we're not limited by regions. We're not limited by the mix of stores that are in our area. Uh, and there are sales literally all the time. In my area, if I were going to do retail arbitrage at grocery stores, we've got Publix and Winn-Dixie. Those are the two major grocery stores in my area. Publix is much larger by an order of magnitude, but they pretty much have competing sales. Whereas with online arbitrage, there are going to be sales at grocery stores. They're going to be competing sales. They're going to be, someone's going to have a sale just because, clearance is going to be at a tons of different sites and things like that. Now, why do I think online arbitrage is a great way to get started? Well, one of the reasons, in my opinion, especially for beginners, is it can be a bit demoralizing to go out to a retail store and find absolutely nothing. You scan, for 2-3 hours, you find nothing that you can either you're gated and everything or nothing is profitable. And going out and physically doing it can be a little bit demoralizing. Doing it behind a computer, you can take breaks, you can work for 30 minutes, take a 10-minute break, come back, do it all over again. But you also can uh, learn while you're doing. It's kind of hard to watch a YouTube video on one screen while you're also trying to scan items in a grocery store. And then outside of that, it it allows you to paper trade a little bit easier. And we're going to get to that in a little while too, about how you can use that in your business. But you can keep track of things, on a spreadsheet and see how they would have done had you purchased them if you're not willing to spend a little bit of Amazon tuition. And then some of the other reasons I like OA compared to private label or wholesale is you don't need as much capital as you do for private label or wholesale. It's easy to do part time. You can do it while you're watching TV with your kids or your wife. You can do it when they're sleeping. You can get up a little early. Like it can kind of fit around your lifestyle while you're working a job. Um, and I don't know. I think OA is the best way to get started on Amazon. I'm curious about your opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think in the beginning, retail arbitrage is great for beginners as well, because I think finding items in store is a little more rewarding to the beginner if you physically see it. So it's more of the treasure hunt aspect of it is a little bit stronger with retail arbitrage. But other than that, online arbitrage, there's several advantages which you covered, and also online arbitrage affords you more and bigger discounts than you're going to find in a retail atmosphere, right? Which we'll get into later. But there, you can stack cashback, you can stack on top of your credit card rewards, which of course you'd also get in retail arbitrage. But then you have coupon codes. That's a bit unique to online arbitrage versus retail arbitrage. So and that's kind of what it's all about. If you're a beginner, you're basically manufacturing as big of a margin as you can. And you use that, and basically you're taking advantage of what Chris mentioned with competing grocery stores, right? Because you have two grocery stores, and they're going to try to entice people to come into their store versus the other one. It's the same thing. It's the same with the example of gas stations on opposite corners. They're going to try to do something to win your loyalty and win your business. Uh, that's a situation that we are trying to take advantage of. If um, if there's a Target and a Walmart across the street from each other, and Walmart's going to put something on sale, Target is going to likely match that, or they may put something else on sale, maybe some complimentary. Maybe it's a different type of video game. It's Walmart slashes prices on Squishmallows, so Target's gonna slash prices on My Little Pony or something, and try to get. That's how they compete, right? And from our perspective, we're watching those prices get lower. So they're getting below the MSRP. They're getting below even Target and Walmart or whatever store you're looking at, even their average selling price, which we have access to that through Keepa, as far as the Amazon price. And so that's what we're doing. And then you find a coupon code, you stack rewards, and discounted gift cards and all this stuff. Next thing you know, you're getting it at a profitable buy cost, and then it's rinse and repeat from there. So
Absolutely. Yeah. Hey, Amazon sellers, are you tired of juggling multiple tools to manage your FBA business? Well, say goodbye to the chaos and hello to Boxum, the all-in-one software that streamlines your shipments, inventory, and profitability tracking in just a few clicks. With Boxum, you'll cut your shipment time in half, gain real-time insights into your business, and keep your inventory under control, all from one simple, intuitive dashboard. Don't waste time. Try Boxum today and take your Amazon FBA game to the next level. Check it out over at cleartheshelf.com/Boxum and start your 14-day free trial now. Before we get into setting up Amazon accounts and all that stuff, what were some of the struggles that you had at the very beginning that people could learn from?
the biggest struggle is the time that it takes.
Mm-hmm.
I think I walked in, I had no preconceived notions that this was going to be a get rich quick scheme. However, even knowing that, I think the way Amazon FBA is presented to the people on the outside, I think it implies uh, a certain amount, or maybe it's just the way it's presented, or just the business model, or something like that. There's for some reason, I don't know what it is. I can't pinpoint it, but people think it's easier than it is, and it's
Mm-hmm.
probably the same thing with social media and everything like that. You look at people, and it's easy to forget that you're only seeing the highlights, and all the good things. Nobody's going to put their losses out on social media. So you get this perception that people's lives are great. I think that's the same thing with Amazon sellers. Uh, you're only going to see orange bars that sellers are proud of.
Mm-hmm.
You rarely are you going to see like, whoo, man, a real stinker this last month. Check this out. And, and you're not going to provide evidence of it. Um, so I think that's the difficult part of it, is that you're kind of, you're presented with a greatest hits uh, when you first learn about it.
Yeah.
So I think it's time, the time commitment, the time that it takes. Um, Especially with the beginner. You mentioned that you're going to be gated in a lot of things in the beginning, rightfully so, because Amazon doesn't know what kind of seller you are. They don't know what your track record is or what it's going to be. So they're going to withhold certain brands and certain categories and stuff from you until you prove that you're a good seller, and that there's a level of trust that you have to build with Amazon. Um, and that can be frustrating, because you're going to find, especially when you're struggling to find profitable products, and you finally find one and you check and you're restricted and you're not allowed to sell it. Um, I think it's the amount of time, and it's the amount of bad products that you have to go through. Um, I think that's probably the biggest obstacle that you kind of have to uh, come to grips with in the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Right. I think you're absolutely right. I I wish that we could do more to dispel the, like going 0 to 100,000 in sales, because there are some people who, yes, they absolutely do it very, very quickly. I think the fastest I've ever really seen it is maybe, 3 or 4 months where they've gone from 0 to 100,000 in sales. But what you don't see is how much debt is levered to make that happen. You have no idea what the cash flow is and things like that. And so I think you're right on there. If people were willing to take a little bit more time, unfortunately, the social media thing, I mean, it's what we see. We're seeing that right now with TikTok Shop, Amazon influencer programming. Oh, it's so easy. I can go from 0 to, X in, just a couple of months by making, 3 videos a day or whatever it is. Um, I wish we could do more to just show people or explain or get people to realize that this is the way it is in every business. If you wanted to start on Amazon, or if you wanted to start, say, a power washing company, like it's going to be the same way. Both of them can do huge numbers, but you need to think in terms of years, not weeks. Um,
Mhm.
yeah. So hopefully, if nothing else, people take that away from this show.
Yeah,
Uh,
and honestly, and before we close up that thought, um, depending on where you are in life, when you stumble upon this episode, um, I think age has to do with it, and I think it's worth stating that go going slower than what you see on social media isn't necessarily a bad thing.
mhm,
Don't think that you're missing out. Don't think that you're getting left behind, especially if you're older, if you're starting this as a side hustle, or if you have a family. Um, there are people that go 0 to $100,000 in sales very quickly, that are not profitable,
mhm,
and are setting themselves up for a debt spiral, which can be, if left unattended, can be significant. The more you have on the line, as far as your personal life, whether you have a family, or and even depending on age, you say, you can make mistakes younger because you have more time to make up for it, and there's that whole thing. I think there's a sliding scale. I think as you get older, you get a little, or you need to be a little more cautious,
mhm,
because if not saying that the not saying that it's inherent that something catastrophic may happen to you, but if you're not careful, if you're not knowing your numbers, and you just decide that you're gonna, uh, you know pedal to the metal, and uh, you know be a millionaire real quick, if you're not doing it right, it can get dangerous. So, um, slower than what you see on social media isn't a bad thing.
mhm.
Definitely keep that in mind too.
Uh, it's funny you mentioned that about age. That is a huge factor. I know that the risks. I think that I'm a fairly risk tolerant person. But the risks that I would take now compared to what I would take, say, 12 years ago before I had kids, are so much different.
Hmm.
Uh, just because I like, it's not just me anymore. Like, yeah, I had a wife 12 years ago, and uh, we could have shared sleeping in the car together for a while, but I could not do that with my kids now. Yeah, that's interesting. All right, let's talk a little bit about, like, kind of the foundation. Can you walk us through, like, what it takes to set up your Amazon seller account for somebody who's just getting started?
Uh, from what I remember, it's not. It's a fairly unremarkable process.
Hmm.
I know it may seem intimidating at first, but just factual information. I mean, as long as you're not trying to pull something, you want your Basically, you go to Seller Central. It is, I start at the very beginning. Seller Central. I think it's sellercentral.amazon.com, right? And you'll find links to sell on Amazon. I even see them on product pages. I didn't notice them. Hadn't noticed them for a while, but they actually are there on the forward facing product pages. So yeah, you go to Seller Central. You want to put your actual information in. You don't get cute with trying to use a PO box or try to manufacture some business address. You want it factual, because as soon as you jump into Seller Central and you start filling this information out, the first time you hit save, that information, like a good spousal argument, will come back to haunt you potentially years down the road. So you want to make sure you're doing everything the right way and have accurate information. So you put your information. The biggest question that you may pause on is individual seller account versus professional seller account. That's probably the first potential stumper of a question that you may find when you first get started. The differences between the two: one is a flat fee. The professional seller account charges you $40 a month. Basically, I think it's $39.99 every single month to sell on Amazon. And you may ask why. If I'm just getting started, I don't want to be in $40 in the hole every single month right away, and that's a valid concern. However, the difference between just doing an individual seller, avoiding that $40 monthly fee, is you are going to pay an extra dollar per order under an individual account. So the math becomes pretty easy. If you end up selling more than 40 items every single month, you're actually saving money by signing up for the professional seller's account and just paying the $39.99. There are also, Chris, remind me of the advantages that come with the professional seller account. There are a couple perks, right?
Yeah,
In addition.
you do get more from Amazon. I always forget, exactly. I know that there's some things that people say, which Amazon doesn't really say whether or not it's the case or not. But it seems that with the professional account, you tend to be ungated in a little bit more. And if you go from a professional account to an individual account, you go backwards for whatever reason. I have seen cases where you might lose ungatings that do not necessarily come back when you move back to a professional plan. Um, and honestly, it's $40 a month. Like, if you're going to start a business, if you're going to start a restaurant or anything else like that, like there's no way to start a business for $40 a month other than like on Amazon. They all,
Right.
there's always a startup cost. Um, Outside of that, I don't know for sure. Some people will say, "Oh, well, I don't get the buy box if I have an individual plan," but that's not true either. You can get the buy box even if you're on an individual plan. I think the biggest thing is that cost per month, which is you're gonna pay it one way or the other. You sell 40 items per month and you're on the individual plan, you're gonna pay that extra buck. If you sell 41 items, it makes sense to move over to the professional plan, and there's no reason to get hit twice. If you hit 40 items in a single month and you're like, "Oh, I need to switch over." Well, guess what? They're going to hit you with that $40 monthly fee immediately, and now they've double dipped on you. So, I think you
Right.
should just pick one. And then I think there are a couple of things that you need to think about. Like, number one, I have people come and ask me all the time, well, do I need an LLC or an S corp, or which way to go to get started? Well, the right answer is it doesn't matter as much as you think. So you should have a corporate structure. You need to talk to a CPA or someone like that to help you have the right corporate structure for that makes sense for you. And that's going to be different for everybody. my opinion is that if you want to get into this, you should probably treat it like a business from the very beginning. Get an LLC, get a business bank account, get a business credit card if you can, and sign up through your LLC, which is a sole member LLC is going to be treated like a sole proprietorship. You can also start an Amazon business before you have that LLC. The great thing about being in America is you can just say, I'm in business, and guess what? You are. And so Amazon allows us to do that as well. So if that's what's holding you back, I would say don't worry about it. Just get started. You can change things later on down the road. Now, there is something to be said about changing from, say, a sole proprietor to some sort of corporate structure where there could be issues where Amazon maybe removes some of your ungatings. Maybe they give you a little bit of a hard time changing your bank account information or anything like that. It does happen, which is one of the reasons why I like to do it on the front end. Um, you would have to do all of this if you were starting another type of business anyway. If you were starting a lawn care business, the power washer, the window washing, or a local service business, like these are all things you would do anyway. So you might as well make sure that it's done for an Amazon business as well. And if you move on from the Amazon business and you don't, use some sort of Amazon or retail focused name, you could always use that LLC later on for another side hustle. Um, Now, when you're getting an account these days, chances are you're probably going to go through a verification process that may include an actual video interview. And you want to make sure that there aren't any delays during the approval process. So, like Chris said, make sure that your addresses match. Don't say that, you're at suite 123 just to sound professional if you're not actually in suite 123. Make sure that everything matches on the address you give Amazon, on your bank account, whether that's a business bank account or a personal bank account, on your credit card, maybe on a PayPal account. Like just make sure that everything is in order so that you can show Amazon and all of it matches on like your driver's license. So you can show Amazon it's actually you who is opening the account. That is something that's becoming more and more important to Amazon is that the person running the account is the person selling the products and everything lines up, including receipts and things like that, which will be important down the road.
Yeah, if you're and the thing to remember through this whole process is try to learn the sooner you can do this, the better off you'll be. Is try to look at it from Amazon's perspective. Um, Now, if you're listening to this and this is Q4 of 2024 when we're recording this. If you're just getting started now, if you're a true beginner, um, you're at a point now where you're probably, if you're paying attention to social media and mentions of Amazon FBA in the overall environment, wherever you may habitate online, there's probably more negativity going around right now than I can remember in my 5 years. I'm not sure if it goes back longer. Chris has been in the game over 10 easily, so I'm not sure if that's true for him too. But in my 5 years, this is as down as it has been. Um, why is that good news for you, for the true beginner? Because you're not going to know any different. Um, you can. I remember my first couple of years, and this is going to come in waves. You're going to hear certain things. Amazon fees. Oh, they went up again. They're always raising fees. That's just going to cycle through about once every year, at least
Mhm.
on average. So I'm in my fifth cycle of hearing that. Um, the thing is, the people who have been in it longer tend to complain a little bit louder.
Mhm.
You know, Which makes sense. I mean, somebody who's in year 3 and they're raising it. This is the third year in a row they're raising fees. You can get over that a little bit easier. But you also have revisionist history a little bit. The longer you've been in the game, these people who've been around, they'll tell you every chance they get when fees come up that it was much easier to sell back in the day. And while I believe that's largely true, I'm not calling BS on that. I think they're excluding some of the reason. I mean, Amazon is also a lot bigger. They've also brought in hundreds of millions, probably, of additional eyeballs, or at least tens of millions additional eyeballs with disposable income in their pockets, and it's a more vibrant marketplace. But that don't let the facts get in the way of a good complaint story. So, but my point is, you're not going to know any different. So just think of it from the perspective of what Amazon has to do. And again, we put the timestamp on this, on when we're recording this. Amazon is going through antitrust litigation. They're getting sued by the U.S. government with antitrust and whatnot, and that is scheduled to, I believe, some traction in how that's going to go will emerge in 2025, if I'm not mistaken.
October 2025. Yep.
Yeah, so October 20, we're about a year away from that. So Amazon is going to do certain things. They're going to be cleaning house, so to speak. Companies coming over, so you always straighten up a little bit. So there are going to be some weird things. Maybe not so weird to you if you don't know any better, if you're the true beginner. So, but look at it from a perspective. There's also a massive counterfeit rings, not just on Amazon. It's affecting multiple marketplaces. It's a vibrant industry, the creation of counterfeit name brand goods. That's something to deal with. It's difficult, and if you're any kind of consumer yourself and moving into this space, it's probably in the back of your mind. You've probably gotten something, maybe find a good price on a website that you haven't heard of or don't know a lot about. Once you get that product, there's going to be a little bit of a doubt. There's going to be a seed of doubt in there. How did they get that price? How did they get it so cheap? Same kind of thing. Now, Amazon is a $1 trillion company. So imagine managing counterfeit goods with tens of millions, if not more, third-party sellers all bring in their products and send it into your warehouses. So it's there are going to be verifications. There's going to be a lot of not a lot, but there's going to be red tape that you have to go through, just simply because Amazon has to make sure, and they're in the process of learning more about their third-party sellers' supply chains. So, but like I said, I think it's an advantage for a new seller because that's just going to be the way it is.
I like the way that you framed that. I think you're 100% right. Yeah. One, kind of having to go through the crucible, if you will, at the beginning of selling on Amazon, gives you a little bit more grit. Maybe you have to go through the verification process to get an account, and then maybe you send in your first products. And if you're looking out on social media, you're seeing Section 3s, which are suspensions. Amazon wanting to learn about that supply chain, so maybe you have to deal with one of those. But on the other hand, when I started, there was nowhere near the kind of information that there was. There were groups, and you could ask people for help, but people were a little bit, people kept things a little bit closer to the vest. And I remember I asked people specifically if I could come and work for them. Like, hey, I will come and work for you for free. And people were like, no, 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 no. But I actually see that kind of thing happening on social media now. I see some of the younger guys actually renting apartments and houses together so that they can grow their individual businesses, learn from each other, help each other. That kind of stuff didn't happen when I first got into this business. It was, yeah, we'll help you some, but you need to figure out a lot of this stuff on your own. And now, I mean, there's a course around every corner. There are people who are willing to ask questions. There's so much social media videos, content, Twitter threads, guides, blog posts that, I mean, it's almost impossible not to be able to Google or look up on Perplexity exactly what your issue is or what you need to learn and find one or more guides on it, which did not, it just was never around before.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I mean, it's easier now than ever before to network with other sellers. Um, they were. It's true. It's very sellers were very secretive. There's there can be a paranoia um, among sellers that somehow if you find out what they're selling, you're going to steal everything and their numbers will go to zero, which isn't quite true. Um, Not that you should be protective of your information. I'm not saying otherwise, but and really, we'll get into finding profitable products too. Honestly, it's never been easier to find products. Like going back to when you got started. There's so many more tools
Mhm.
available now. Um, I mean, if we pause this podcast right now and me and you jumped on a shared screen, I don't think it would take longer than a half hour to find 10 profitable products that are pulling in $5 profit per unit and 30% ROI or more.
Mhm.
And we could do it by stalking other storefronts or you can go through a sale, and the tools out there there are tools out there that'll bring up the calculators right on the side of the screen right now. And this is all, the beginners are going to take it for granted. But a lot of this stuff is just incredible innovation in the tools, and it's maturing. You're watching
Mhm.
the um, I swear, I don't really believe this is a word, but the maturation. I think we that became a word. That just is so awkward to say, and it started with like NFL. That was the first place. It's like an old lineman, with like pre CTE saying maturations. Just like that can't be right. Um,
Sounds like something Yogi Berra would say.
yeah, yeah. But it's the growth of the marketplace and it's evolving and it's maturing. So that is to your advantage. Speaking
Mhm.
to the beginner.
And let's talk about tools because that's one of the first things that people, want to know. I want to say a couple of things before I tell you about what tools I think you should have. Number one is a lot of people will ask me, "Oh, well, is this tool going to do X for me?" And what I hear under a lot of those questions is this going to be the key that unlocks my ability to source profitable products? The answer is no. There's not really any product or any tool except for maybe Keepa that is going to be the unlock, for you to become a better Amazon seller to source more profitable products. What really makes people stand out or shine as finding all this profitable inventory is consistency. It's an Amazon business is a lot like baseball. You need to get up to bat as frequently as possible, and you need to have an okay batting percentage. If you're hitting 255 or 300 as you source, you're going to do just fine. And as long as you're hitting singles and doubles, you're going to win. And because you're getting up to bat, you're going to find home runs and grand slams every now and again. Um, but there are a couple of tools that I think you should have, and they're not expensive. The first one is Keepa. Now, Keepa, when I started, was free. It's now a paid tool. You don't have a choice. There's no discounts out there. You're not, You're not going to get it for free or anything like that. But Keepa is the one tool that everyone needs to have and needs to understand better than anything, in my opinion. Keepa allows you to know, does it sell, by looking at historical sales rank. Amazon feeds it data now, not Amazon, but they scrape data now on some listings of actually how many units sell according to Amazon data over the past couple of months. Um, you can see how many competitors there are. You can see the price history so that we can figure out, well, if this is what it's done historically, what is it likely to do going forward? Because the longer something is the same historically, the longer it will likely be the same going forward. That's just the way things are. Uh, but Keep is also a sourcing tool now. You can use Keep a product finder to find products that maybe are going up in price, or have fewer sellers than they did a month ago. You can look up things by keywords. Like, it is the most important tool in an Amazon seller's toolkit, in my opinion. More important than any profitability calculator, more important than any kind of sourcing software. If you understand Keepa, I think that alone can make you a pretty dangerous seller. Do you think that's going too far?
No, not at all. That's absolutely true. It's the very last. Uh, if you went on a savings spree and said, I need to cut every expense that I can get, Keepa is literally the very last thing. If you give up Keepa, you're basically just throwing in the towel.
Hmm.
It's the number one. It's the first thing to get. It's the tool to spend the most time with. It's the tool to continually, and I'm saying this from personal experience, 5 years in, it's the tool that consistently continues to repay you for uh, the education that you put into it. Meaning you need to keep learning about it. Um, the best advice, if say somebody's listening to this right now and they pull up keepa.com, in a separate window, or they have their headphones on or something, uh, you may be intimidated by it, um, especially if you're, if you don't like charts. That's um, You'll learn to like them. That's for sure if you stick with this. But it can be intimidating at very first glance. You're not sure what the information is, but don't let that discourage you. And my best advice with Keepa would be to compartmentalize your Keepa education, because Keepa, if Keepa is a tree, with all these different branches of things you can do, and the branches have various thickness, which would be the importance of it. Um, if you stick just with the trunk, and maybe a branch here or there, but you concentrate on the trunk of the Keepa tree as far as learning it, um, that's immensely valuable, right? And then as you get comfortable, as you get familiar, then you can start taking on more of Keepa. And once you start expanding how Keepa can help your business, I don't know where the finish line is, because there's so much to it and so many different ways to use it to your advantage. So, but take little bits, like just start with the chart, figure out, the information that it's providing to you, and get comfortable with that. And then just little chunks at a time. But it is very, very important. And you'll get it down regardless of how intimidating it looks at first glance.
Hmm. And we've got some resources, like free resources. So Chris and I have done more than one podcast about Keepa. I've got 3 or 4 blog posts about Keepa over on my website. Like, spend some time there. It is the tool for Amazon sellers. Now, the next tool that I think people should have, now you can do this for free. You can use Amazon's profitability calculator, and that's okay. my opinion is it's a bit clunky. It's not on the page or anything like that. So I do think you should have some sort of profitability calculator, and there's a bunch out there. I don't know which ones are free, but I know that they exist. But there are some out there that are inexpensive that I would suggest that you buy. Um, Revseller is probably my favorite. Revseller is going to cost you like $97 for a year. You can get a 30-day trial, so it's not going to cost you anything for a whole month. I can't remember if you got to have a discount code to get the 30-day trial or not. I don't know, but I know that there are 30-day trials out there. Uh, but it allows you to quickly see whether or not there's two things. Can I sell it? Which is the second question after does it sell? And then the third question is it profitable? And Revseller will quickly give you those two pieces of information. Up on the right hand corner, it'll let you know whether or not you can sell it and give you the opportunity to go and get ungated in it very easily if you want to, or at least try. And then it offers a calculator to let you know whether or not it would be profitable based on the current price. Now, it does a whole lot of other things too. Revseller is another one of those tools where you spend a little bit more time with it and you're like, oh, well, it does this thing too. And oh, look at that. I found this other thing that it does here. And they're always adding to it and it's getting better and better over time. Fantastic tool. In my opinion, probably underpriced because I know that there's also discount codes out there to get you like $20 off your first year. So you're talking $77, less than $10 a month for an incredible tool that does so many things. And it'll even, if you learn how to use it properly, it will help you source. So if you do manual sourcing, you can actually pull up Amazon listings right on the side. There are a ton of other things. Now, there's also the competitor to Revseller, which is SellerAmp. I also think it's a good tool. It's a little bit more expensive at about $20 a month. It has a couple of features that Revseller doesn't have, like it has a mobile app. It allows you to like save links to leads directly in the app with Revseller. And I think those are the real major differences between the two. You can choose which one you like better. They both come with a free trial, but I do think some sort of profitability calculator is necessary. Outside of that, there are a lot of other free tools. Those are the only paid tools you actually need, in my opinion, are Keepa and a profitability calculator. Now, there are other paid tools that will make your life easier. Don't get me wrong, and we've gone over those kind of things in other podcasts. But there are other free tools that you can get that will make you money. The first one is going to be cashback extensions. Now, you can go and you can download Rakuten and Active Junkie and all these other cashback sites typically have extensions you can install that will then pop up and let you know how much cashback you can get on every site that you source. Or you can download a free one called Rev ROI. Now, full disclosure, I am the original creator of Rev ROI, but it is free and it will let you know how much cash back you can get on every website without all the intrusive pop-ups. It just gives you a little 1 or 7 or 17 icon over the extension in the URL bar to let you know how many different sites are offering cash back for any source site that you may be on. It'll also show you discount gift cards for those sites. All right. And then you can click through to either one of those and turn on the cash back or get the discount gift cards, whatever you might want to do. But then there's also coupons. You're going to want coupon codes for your for the sites that you source, and a couple of them that we've talked about in another episode, which you're going to want to watch about how to manufacture margins, which I think I'll share down in the show notes, is Coopert, Coupon Birds, and Capital One Shopping. Those three will, and you might want to download Honey as well. I don't particularly care for Honey myself, but It is another one that people use. Those will all show you discount gift card, or not discount, coupon codes that you might be able to use at checkout. And then, of course, if you've got ChatGPT or Perplexity, you can always check there as well. Google is another place that you can check for coupon codes. Go to the second page, the third page, to try to find the ones that other people are not looking for or finding because, well, they're lazy.
Yeah, it's one thing to remember as you're getting started is if it was easy for you to find, it's going to be easy for other people to find as well. If you're just getting started and you found us, on your beginner journey, if you go through our content that we've done together, you'll find a recurring theme of the extra mile is never crowded. That's definitely true in this industry as well. Page 2, page 3, very few sellers ever get that far. And it's going to be the same thing with shopping. If you're pulling up a buy two get one free sale, and you have, like, I think a place like Hot Topic has something going on right now, and I want to say there are tens of thousands of products. If you don't sort by product type, how many sellers are going to stop once they get through 30, 40, maybe 50 pages? If they're not having a ton of success, they're going to stop there, which means the sellers who realize that they just need to put the reps in, they need to put the time in, they may find that gem on page 89. And when they do find that gem, there's going to be very little competition for it, because the bulk of the sellers have given up already. But you're gonna find that a lot. That the persistence and just knowing, going back to what we said in the beginning, is it's the amount of time that it takes and the amount of reps. If you already have it in your mind that it's going to take more, and it's a bit longer haul than most people anticipate, you'll be in really good shape. So, and as far as coupon codes and everything, like a lot of stuff, Revo ROI helps with the crowding of the bookmarks, the Chrome extension bookmark bar. But there are some other things too. Some of the tools, even the free tools that you use, they'll want to have a Chrome extension, which, and a lot of time it's helpful. So you may want to look into something like Extensity, to where you can specifically turn certain extensions on and off, or set up different menus. Like if you're using a computer, and you're only part-time, it's not a dedicated Amazon sourcing machine. You can actually set up different profiles. You can just turn on all these extensions. You could turn on Revo ROI. You could turn on tactical arbitrage, tactical expander, different things that you may end up getting as you go on, and you can kind of set up that profile and then shut it off and go back to your normal extensions when you're browsing the internet casually.
Now, one of the other things that I think that you should be aware of as a newer seller is don't go crazy at the very beginning. When I got into golf for the very first time, it was, holy cow, did it cost me a lot of money. I immediately took on the personality of being a golfer. I was no longer just a regular person. I was a golfer. So that meant I needed clubs. And of course I didn't need the putter that came with the set of clubs. I needed, a different putter. And then each, I didn't need uh, the covers that came with the clubs. I needed to get, club head covers that were, much more my personality. And you need the hat, and you need, several polos, and you need the right shorts, and, a couple of gloves. And then every other little tool, I unfortunately, if you want to find water, you could take me to a desert and give me a 9-iron and a golf ball, and I'd find the closest water trap. And so, of course, you need the tools to get your golf ball out of the water and, rangefinder, all these different things. The thing is, I didn't really need any of that stuff. I needed a polo, I needed a pair of golf shoes, I needed a glove, and I needed some sticks to hit a ball with. Everything else was really just some sort of procrastination or a reason to get me to spend money thinking it would improve my game, when in reality, the reps at the driving range are really what do the trick. So be careful in over investing in software. Try to find the free version. Try to take advantage of free trials if you think something is really going to be helpful. But there's not many things other than the debt spiral that Chris talked about earlier that will tank a new business, other than these fixed expenses that you tend to forget about because you got 15 new tools and then you're not using them and you're not canceling them. Uh, they will eat away at margins very, very quickly. So make sure to be mindful of what you are spending your money on, when that money would likely be better served to be invested into your inventory.
Yeah. And just to set a baseline, you'll hear different versions of this. But if you I'll give fair warning first. You you're going to be sold a lot of different stuff. If you plug into the community, and you plug into social media, uh, it's on par with. They're going to try to reach you about your extended warranty. It's that level. If you can see through, some marketing's better than others. Um, but yeah, you're going to be sold a lot of stuff. So there's only a couple different versions of the baseline tools, right? And we've already talked about that. In my opinion, uh, starting out, you only need two tools, right? Keepa is number one, uh, and that's non-negotiable. And then the other one would be either your preference between Revseller and Seller Amp. Um, Both have strengths over the other. Um, and I'll save you my opinion, but you're going to accomplish about the same thing with either one. They're both very strong as competitors. Um, Look into it again. Take advantage of free trials to figure out which ones extra bells or extra whistles are going to appeal to you more. That's it. Okay, as far as I'm concerned. Um, you may find somebody that you start listening to that has a third tool that is non-negotiable. Um, Maybe they're right. Maybe with their philosophy or what they do or what they're trying to teach you or share with you, that may be right. But as far as I'm concerned, that's the baseline, and
Mhm.
then you go from there, right? Those are the only two tools that I think it's acceptable to buy as a solution to a weakness that you have. Okay.
Mhm.
Um, the only two tools that you should buy, being conscious of a weakness in your own skill level, because that's how foundational those two tools are. But it's simply, Amazon doesn't tell you. Amazon's not going to let you know how often something sells. Not very often. They've started to give a little bit of stuff that they meter out. But Keepa Keepa's the gold standard. You're able to evaluate velocity, among many other things with Keepa. And then obviously the calculator, the Revseller or Seller Amp. You need to know the profit and whatnot. And like Chris said, you can get that through Amazon, through Seller Central, but that's a few extra steps. It's not very efficient. You could literally Keepa and Revseller, or Keepa and Seller Amp will literally sit on the Amazon page, the product page itself. So you could have two tabs. One is the Amazon product detail page. The other is the source that you're looking at as a potential supplier, uh, and that's it. That's all you need, and you can toggle back and forth. You can calculate profit with little widgets, and you can see if it sells with the Keepa widget, and it'll show up there. That's all you need. Those two tools, those two tabs, and you can make. Who knows? I'm not sure what the ceiling is on how much money you can make with just those two tools. So
it's, I mean, we've had a seller on who does, almost 10 million a year. Maybe probably going to do 8 million a year. And that's basically all they use. No automations.
Right.
It's just manual sourcing with a tool like Revseller or Seller Amp and Keepa. And that's it. And
Yep.
then, of course, a prep center. Now, I might argue that maybe a repricer is something that you get fairly early, but it does not need to be day one. It doesn't need to be until you have inventory at Amazon, because I don't think it's possible to appropriately reprice manually any longer unless you're selling some higher ranked listings where the price just doesn't really move at all. The chances are, though, you're not looking for those kind of listings. You're looking for things that are moving a little bit more frequently, have a little bit more competition. So maybe a repricer is something that you get fairly soon, but I still think that's easily in third place behind Keepa and some sort of profit calculator.
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree with that. And we draw the distinction because what I don't want you to do, I desperately don't want you to do this, is to start buying tools as a solution to a weakness in yourself, right? Tools from this point on, and throw a repricer in there too. That's true. I agree. Which it's kind of intermediate level as far as understanding that, but just take our word for it, and we have other episodes that cover the importance of repricing. So take those three. From there, any tools that you buy above and beyond should make you more efficient. They should not be bought as a solution to something you don't understand or you can't do well enough,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's very
Absolutely.
important. And approach every tool beyond those three with that mindset. Only buy it
Mm-hmm.
if it's going to make you more efficient.
Yeah. Now, let's talk a little bit about like actually finding profitable products. And now I know that, Chris, I know you like reverse sourcing. I do too. I mean, I'm not going to lie about that. So I was wondering if you could walk us through reverse sourcing and what it is and how to use it.
Yeah, reverse sourcing is essentially taking products from the Amazon catalog and finding them in the wild. Okay. Um, and what makes that reverse sourcing would be the opposite of that would be going to a website like a Walmart.com and searching through what Walmart has and seeing if they're profitable on Amazon. Okay. Um, I like reverse sourcing because I think there's a bit of uh, proof already if you find it on Amazon, and you can actually see, you can actually refine your sourcing sessions based on what you're looking for. Specific, most of the time it's going to be like the amount, a certain rank. You're probably going to have a metric that you prefer to stay under as far as a sales rank goes, or you can fine tune based on whatever is important to you. But most of the time it's going to be uh, some form of velocity as far as sales goes. So being able to look at stuff that is proven to sell on Amazon and then trying to find it profitably, um, I just think it's I have better luck with it. Essentially, I like being able to look at multiple stores at the same time. It just seems like I'm getting through the World Wide Web faster than
Mhm.
taking one specific store. It feels more diversified, which I feel is probably more profitable in the long run. But that's opinion.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Yeah, I mean, the thing that I like about reverse order is probably what you said last is the fact that I can look at multiple places. Like if I'm going to show an example here in just a moment. And the problem with this example, it's profitable. It's a winner, but uh, I'm not going to go out most likely and do a Google search to see if I can find this product somewhere else for the same price or cheaper. Now, why would I want to do that? Well, if it's the same price, maybe I'm limited on how many I can buy from source number one. So I buy more from source number two if that's the right move. Or, maybe I could actually find it cheaper somewhere else. When I'm doing reverse sourcing, like that's the first thing you're doing. You're looking at Google Shopping, you're looking through, the search engine results, and you're trying to find it as cheap as you possibly can, or opening up 3 or 4 different sources. And as a side benefit of that, you're also learning, oh, well, this product is sold at Target, but it's also sold at Nordstrom and Macy's and some weird site that I've never heard of before. But if I look it up, I can see that, oh, well, that's actually a pretty popular site in a certain niche. And now I know, well, here's another place I could go look for these types of products that other people may not know about. Um, Now, there's also one of the other things about reverse sourcing that I like is you can do it a couple of different ways. If you want to go after just a particular brand, let's say Adidas, for example, you can do that. I could look for just storefronts that sell mostly Adidas. I can use something like Keepa Product Finder, which you can learn about in other podcast episodes, just pulling up Adidas brand products, or we could look at storefronts, or not store, sorry, store brands, and go after very specific store brands. Great Value, Equate, Target has, I think, 52 different store brands that they own. I've written Twitter threads on how to find those and why they actually do well. And then, of course, there's what we call manual sourcing, or you call it hunting sales, or anything like that. Another tool you may want that's free is something called SalesGazer. It's at salesgazer.com. Again, this is something that I helped create, so just full disclosure there. But you're going to want to keep your finger on the pulse of where sales are happening, uh, and and then you can go and source those. So, if Kohl's has a sale, which you're going to want to be careful with, or Target has a certain sale, or all these other sites are going to have sales quite frequently. And that's one way to be able to uh, manufacture your margin, is to be able to take advantage of those. They might be seasonal sales, they might be holiday promotions, which when we're recording this, different holiday promotions are going to be hot and heavy now through the end of the year. We've got Black Friday coming up. We've got Cyber Monday coming up. We're going to have pre-Christmas sales. We're going to have, who knows what else they'll come up with. But these are all things that you want to make sure that you're staying in the know about, and SalesGazer makes that easy. Otherwise, you could go out and you could actually sign up to hundreds of sites' emails so that you get emailed them every single day. I do that too. There's a couple of sites that I make sure get through because I want to know exactly when their best sales are hitting. So make sure that you get those on a regular basis. Now, I thought we'd do something a little bit different. This is something we don't normally do on the podcast, but I figured we would actually show an example. All right. This is based on finding a product that is on sale and then comparing it to Amazon. All right. So Nordstrom is having a sale right now on shoes. This one is a baby shoe or a toddler shoe. It's a little Nike, so some people can sell it, some people can't. But this one is 50% off at $21 right now. Now, it would be in your best interest when you find something like this, whether it came from SalesGazer or a friend tipping you off or whatever it is, to see if you can also put a coupon code on top of this. All right. There are not any coupon codes I can put on top of this right now. Can you get any cash back? Which I know that we actually can through, let's see what we've got here. top cashback. We can get 2.4% cashback. Now, you cannot figure that into your margins. That is just going to be a little cream on the top or a little extra. And you might be able to find a discounted gift card. Rev ROI is not showing us anything right now, but I'd also go and check giftcardwiki.com just to double check. But there are some sites where you can get an extra 10% off. And if we can get 10% off at this, that would save us another $2 off of this product, making it $19 in total, just as an example. All right. But then we need to go and find the match on Amazon. Now, there are several ways to do that. You can use Revseller or Seller Amp, and you can actually search for this on the actual site itself and try to find the match here. Or if you don't have that tool, you can actually go over to Amazon and find it by searching in the search bar, just like you would when you're shopping on Amazon. And so that's what we did. We found this match over here. It's currently ranked 5,000 in clothing, shoes, and jewelry, which means it's selling pretty quickly, right? Now, the thing about shoes and clothing is that there are variations. So even if the sales rank is incredible, one of the variations may not sell as well as the others, okay? Now, Amazon, this yellow line here in the sales or in the Keepa graph, says that it sells 50 plus units per month. Now, that's a lagging indicator, but chances are that's going to continue going. And we can see in the number of offers that the seller count is moving up and down. So chances are that number is right. You can also look at the buy box line here. That's that pink line up here. And you can see it's fairly flat or stable. Chances are, as long as the number of sellers doesn't increase majorly, which don't go out and source this product. I have no idea how many people will actually see this podcast. But if it's, 1,000 or more, that means 1,000 people have seen this and tried to go look for it. But you can see, based on this pink line here, that it's a fairly stable price. It has come down some, but it's stayed fairly stable. And if we go back up to our product calculator, we can see that it makes about $9 in profit, a 43% ROI if we can sell it for $41.10. This would be a solid product. Now, I don't suggest shoes and clothing for the first category for you to sell in, but some people do like a lot of shoes and clothing. Now, that was a quick and simplified example of finding a profitable product, but you just do that over and over and over again. You're going to see a bunch of duds in between. But if you look at 100 or 200 products per day and find 4 or 5 like that, you've got yourself a fairly solid business if you have the capital to purchase all of those.
Yeah, and that's a great example of the advantage that online arbitrage has. Is that, if you look at that scenario, they're selling for MSRP looked like it was about $42. Amazon sells them for about $42. Nordstrom normally sells them for about $42. I imagine if you popped it into Google and hit the Google shopping tab, there are other major retailers that'll be around that $42 price point. For whatever reason, Nordstrom is liquidating or juicing up the units sold on that particular shoe. You can't do that. That would take you a very long time to recreate that scenario in retail arbitrage. You'd be running across the mall and to hit Dillard's and then run over to Nordstrom and somehow not pass by the pretzel place without buying one. And it just takes a long time. But with online arbitrage, you can hit that Google shopping tab and you can get a snapshot of all of the major retailers and some smaller retailers and what they're going for. And then once you find that one store that for whatever reason decides they want to repurpose that valuable shelf space for a different product, it doesn't those are the good ones. If you caught Nordstrom just clearing something out and just making a change within their own 4 walls, that's money right there.
Mhm.
That's a good scenario, and online arbitrage will give you that advantage.
Mhm. Thank you for listening to the Clear the Shelf podcast. My magnanimous co host, Chris Rasick, has put together a gift for you for being a listener. It's called the Monthly Goal Tracking Spreadsheet, and it's free. The spreadsheet will help you break down and track how much you've purchased, which should be a leading indicator of how much you will sell, and then you'll be able to track how much you've sold as well as your estimated monthly profit on a daily basis. This will all feed into the daily averages so you can ensure that you're on track to meet your goals each and every month. Grab it for free today over at cleartheshelf.com/goal-tracking. Thanks again for being a listener. Now back to the show. Now, we should talk about one of the things that newer sellers have maybe the most trouble with, and that's going to be uh, gated products, restricted categories, and things like that. Now, there are here's what it means, okay? Because I think a lot of people like, well, what does that even mean? Well, to be gated in a product means that you can't sell it for one reason or another. There are brands like the Estee Lauder family of brands that are becoming gated for all sellers. And then there are other brands like, let's say, Milwaukee, where you need to prove to Amazon that you have a good supply chain, that you're willing to purchase at least 10 units and go and get ungated. Amazon has a list of things that they want from you to get you ungated in products. And then there are even other products where sometimes, based on your sales history and how long you've been on Amazon, you may just get ungated automatically. And then there are restrictions. There might be restricted categories, restricted brands. Those are going to be things that are not available for you to get ungated in or anything like that. Now, Chris, one thing I'm curious about is how important do you think ungating is?
That's a that's a tough question. Um, my attitude from my personal experience, um, getting ungated in a bunch of stuff is overrated.
Hmm.
Um, I think I think it falls in that thing that the warning that I was trying to give earlier, that people think, oh, if I just get Nike ungated and Adidas and Under Armour, that will unlock my sales. To when and that may be true. If you're in certain circumstances, that might be true. Um, but if that statement is born from frustration in finding different products, have you put enough reps in?
Hmm.
If you're legitimately frustrated and you've been at it for a very long time, then sure, it may be a good solution. It may be helpful. It may get you to where you want to be. But if you're doing it because you don't want to search through the pages of these sales, or go through these sites as much anymore, or potentially, you may be putting the blinders on. You found one site, and for some whatever reason, the profit, the potential profit, just has enchanted you. um I don't know. You're going to have to buy 10 units of something to get ungated. uh Most of the time, the 10 products, or in certain circumstances even more, if which that's more of an advanced topic, but it's going to be at least 10 products of the product to get ungated. Vast majority of the time, the products that you buy to get ungated are not going to be profitable, right? So there is a bit of an investment that you have to make. So now, most of the time, if it's something like Nike, and you're a seasoned seller, or you're good at sourcing and you're willing to put the reps in, yeah, it won't take long for that to pay off. Um, but there's also it's not a difficult path to fall into, to ungate Nike and lose money and have it never pay
Hmm.
off, because
Hmm.
you're sourcing the obvious stuff. You're buying Nike sales from Kohl's, and You're buying products that every other seller is also buying in the obvious places with the obvious discounts attached. Those are going to get crowded, and the profit is going to erode as people undercut each other and look to liquidate. Someone's always going to try to move their inventory faster than you, and in order to do that, they're going to think they need to undercut the price. So, and it only takes two of those people with that philosophy to send a price crashing.
Yep. Now let's talk about how to get ungated, because now, number one, I've got an entire guide over on my blog about how to do it. You can just go to cleartheshelf.com and look up ungating, and it'll walk you through the whole process. But it's a lot simpler than most people think. But on the flip side, it takes a lot more patience, which makes it harder than I think what most people think. So, number one, Amazon's going to want to see that you've purchased 10 units. Now, they'll say that they want an invoice. Many times, a receipt will work from some large stores. So, Home Depot, sometimes Kohl's, Lowe's, maybe a Walmart. Those kind of things will sometimes work, but your mileage may vary. Okay. Another one of the questions I get all the time is, will X work for ungating? Well, I don't know. It might, it has in the past, but it's very possible that whoever you get to look at that just says no this time around. There's also the fact that you can use Amazon to get ungated, but Amazon has made that harder than it once was. They used to just allow us to purchase 10 units from Amazon, and now in many cases it's either 50 or 100 units purchased directly from Amazon to get ungated. I'm guessing they did that because they were probably getting a lot of returns from people getting ungated and then returning those products. Which is another point to bring up. Don't return the items that you purchase for ungating. Even if they're not profitable, give them away to your friends, sell them for break even, or lose a little bit of money on them, throw them up on eBay. Stop returning your bad buys and the items to get ungated with. Now, the last part to getting ungated is to not only show Amazon your purchase, your invoice, your receipt. Maybe you need to add in your bank statement or a credit card statement, but it's to be consistent. It's very likely that Amazon says no the first, second, even third time when you ask to be ungated, even if you know that everything that you have is in order and correct. There was a time when ungating would take 20, 30, 40 different times. I know someone personally who had to request ungating with the same documents like 82 different times before Amazon said, sure, we'll let you get ungated. And that's something that I don't see a lot of people willing to do anymore. They're not willing to keep beating their head against the Amazon wall, which is sometimes what it takes to get them to see that what you're sending in is exactly what they're asking for. So if you go to get ungated, get the right documents, get the correct number of items, and keep sending it in until you can't send it in anymore, which is most likely going to be when you get ungated.
Yeah. Again, it takes reps.
Mm-hmm.
That's the theme again. Too many people quit, or throw their hands up in frustration. Like, I've tried twice now and I can't. Doesn't matter what I do. It's like those are small boy numbers.
Exactly. Now there are some common pitfalls. There are some things that you need to watch out for when you're sourcing. Number one, you don't want to get caught with counterfeit goods. And one of the best ways to get caught with counterfeit goods, or at least without the evidence to prove that you're not selling counterfeit goods, is by using unreliable suppliers. Okay. So a couple of things that you should do. Number one, don't ever source from places like AliExpress or Temu or any of those other sites where you know that if it says Nike, it's not really Nike. It's what was the name of the shoe your son bought?
Oh, Leron Thames.
Leron Thames, which if you're a longtime listener of the show, you'll know that story. But don't go outsourcing Leron Thames. Make sure that you're buying from legitimate sources. It's very easy to do this nowadays. Number one, does it pass the sniff test? If you're looking on Google and you see 4 or 5 different stores that are selling something for $40 and you find a fifth store that's selling it for $19.99, does that really make sense? Probably not. So the very first thing you need to do is to do a little bit of homework. That homework is pretty easy nowadays. Check their social media, check their Facebook page. I know some of you, Facebook is gross, but check their Facebook page, check their Instagram, check if they have Twitter. Are they active? Do they have followers? Do they have reviews across any of those platforms? Check places like Google My Business. Okay. A lot of stores will have a Google My Business page, especially if they have brick and mortar locations. And then you can also check the Better Business Bureau and, of course, Trustpilot. Now, you do have to be a little bit careful with Trustpilot on occasion. Every now and again, you'll come across a Trustpilot set of reviews where reviews have come in all positive, very hot and heavy over the past month or 2 months. And then if you go a little bit further, you'll see that everything was negative. So some people will try to review bomb and get things looking nice after a string of really bad reviews. So make sure to take that into account as well. And talking about Trustpilot, that can be a great place to find competitors that maybe don't show up in Google results. So if I go and look for reviews on Trustpilot for Sephora, for example, which is a well-known makeup store and site, I can look in the category of makeup and beauty products, and I might be able to find 10 or 40 or 50 different online sites that also sell makeup and beauty products. So not only can it save us from buying from bad sources, but it may also be able to help us find alternative places to source that are just not good at SEO. Now, one of the other things, which is probably the thing that is most frequently complained about, is price tanking or price erosion. And Chris, what are some of your best tips for avoiding price tanking?
My best tip would be to consistently on a regular basis search for uh, coupon codes. Less popular, the better. Um, I've set up like incognito windows, and I've actually pulled the URL in, and because they're going to try to grab your cash back. So there is an issue of some of these sites. If you copy a code, you'll see the site pop up in a new tab automatically. That's them trying to put their affiliate cookie in there to earn the commission. Um, but finding coupon codes, finding sources for coupon codes, because there are different levels to it. And I had no idea when I began. I would pretty much I had my 3 or 4 cashback sites that I used, and whatever coupon codes they had, that was the extent of my coupon code exploration. Is whatever they had on hand. There's a whole world outside of that with coupon codes. There are even sites that the users will share their individual codes, not just the honey 10, which anybody you could find almost anywhere. These are these unique codes with hyphens and 12 to 15 digits. A lot of them are one-time use, and they won't be any good, but raise your hand if you've heard us say that it's going to take multiple reps. The same thing's true with codes. You're going to try a bunch, but if one of them hits, I mean, you can easily, you're 10 to 15% away from being invulnerable to price tanking, right?
Mm-hmm.
We say, we've said it before that we don't know what the other person's buy cost is. Um, and it's kind of foolish to assume that you do know. So don't, if you find yourself sitting there going, well, I don't know why they're selling it at a loss. You don't know that, because I'm working harder than you are to find codes, and I may have been able to trim 20% off of what you paid for it. And so if I'm willing to take 15% of that, I can now take my min below where you're willing to go, so and that's going to cause problems for you, and that's the whole nature of it all. So that's my biggest advice. Price tanking, and that's my best advice, because it allows for the largest collection of stores, right? um, my other advice would be to, again, that page 2 and page 3, find those lesser known stores with products. um, Check, if you subscribe to a lead list, Google it, see for yourself if there isn't another source. Now this is once you've grown to a point where you can trust your own vetting process for a source. That's important. Like Chris said, you're checking social media on these stores if you haven't heard of it. Another one that Chris didn't mention is highlight the business address and pull that up in Google and try to look at the street view, look at the actual building now. File that under things that have made it easier from 12 years ago. you know so yeah, and there are plenty of, there are times where I found a great price on something. The name looked good, they had a following, there was activity, like everything was kind of checking out, maybe not at a massive scale, but that's not a hard and fast prerequisite. And then I pulled up the business, and it's a condo or a townhouse or something, and yeah, I hadn't found any other indications that it might not be a legitimate source up to that point. So, but that was a hard pass when you know, when your house plants, and and your neighbors are in the Google Street View. So, um, yeah. So otherwise, but that's the coupon codes is a wider range, and from there, look at the lesser known stores. It's and you'll learn. The nice thing is that you can catalog a lot of these stores that are maybe regional to people, and the bulk of people have never heard of it. Like an example, Chris, you'll know. I saw somebody on social media asking, they had no idea whether Menards was a legitimate
Mm-hmm.
source or not, and that's extremely legit, and it's a great place, and they've got this very unique rebate program, which can be taken advantage of. They basically constantly run 11% rebates, um, which most sellers will not take advantage of. So it comes as a store credit, which again drops buy cost on whatever you buy next even further. So you're
Mm-hmm.
insulating yourself from price tanking that way. But yeah, those are the two main things. And no surprise, both of them entail taking a little extra effort.
Mm-hmm. The only other thing I might add in there is understand that each listing has its own supply and demand curve. All right. And if the supply or the number of sellers goes up, a lot, chances are the price is going to come down unless the demand matches the increased supply. Now, that sounds very confusing, okay? But we've talked on other episodes about how to figure that all out and things, and it's kind of economics 101. But if you see the number of sellers spike very recently and the price hasn't dropped yet, chances are it's going to happen soon. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't source it at all. if you use the tips that Chris just gave you, like, it is possible to still make money while a price is falling. May not be as much as you want to make, but there are still ways to come out ahead even while that price is falling. Now, you've gone sourcing, you've got your first products. Of course, the next road bump that newer sellers hit is sending those items off to Amazon if they're going to use the FBA program or fulfillment by Amazon program, so that you don't have to have inventory stacked on shelves at home or anything like that. There are going to be a couple things that you need to be able to send things off to Amazon. You're going to need boxes, of course. You're going to need some packing tape. You're going to need some labels. You might need a label printer, but you can get away with a regular printer. No need to go out and buy an expensive thermal printer at first. And you need some sort of scale. Now, as just getting started, if you need to pick up the box and weigh yourself with your box and then step off and weigh yourself again and do the math, if you are capable of that math, I'm looking at you, Ann Arbor folks. If you're capable of that math, then that's fine. I'm not going to judge you for doing that. Okay. But you can also get a box scale pretty cheap on Amazon, Walmart, etc. Now, when you get started, if you really need to keep the budget low, and you don't want to go buy boxes at Walmart or U-Haul or UPS or anything, actually don't buy boxes at UPS. Those are expensive. There are ways to get boxes for free. Okay. Go to your local grocery store, ask if they're giving any boxes away, or go to your local Menards. Well, not everyone has a Menards, but Menards is one of the only home improvement stores I know of that don't sell their own branded boxes. So they will often give boxes away for free. Ask your friends and family, go to used bookstores. Like, there are a lot of places where you can get boxes absolutely free. The only thing that you have to be careful of is you cannot send in boxes that have liquor or beer logos on the side. So you have to skip the local liquor store, which unfortunately, liquor boxes tend to be some of the best quality. And the local liquor store probably has a ton of them that they would give to you for free or very cheap, but unfortunately you cannot use them. All right. You're also going to need things like dunnage. That's going to be things to put inside the boxes to make sure that your items don't shift around. That can be done pretty inexpensively. If you're doing retail arbitrage, you can actually use plastic bags stuffed inside of other plastic bags. I personally, my favorite thing to use is craft paper, that brown craft paper. That's my favorite thing to use, but also, I'm sure that you or maybe your spouse or partner is ordering plenty of things from Amazon. When they do decide to ship things in a box, save those boxes, save the whatever dunnage they use inside of them. Any boxes that you have delivered to you from retailers, save those, as well as the dunnage or air pillows that they may use to reuse later on down the road. Nothing wrong with a 50-gallon black trash bag full of dunnage and air pillows to be sitting in the corner of your garage for you to use whenever you need to. Now, Chris, I'm curious. Of course, people don't want their items to be broken on the way into Amazon. If Amazon breaks them once they open up the box at the warehouse and they get reimbursed for them, that's fine. So, what are your best tips on packing your boxes for inbound shipping?
Yeah, that the supplier dunnage is your best friend. Mine actually, you mentioned the black hefty bags full of air pillows. Mine actually hang from the boys' bike racks. The bikes are gone. Now they're hefty bags full of air pillows. You know what? It's funny. I lined my boxes with like bubble wrap and beginning, and those first few shipments were adorable, if I do say so myself. Now it simply becomes more a matter of just heavier stuff on the bottom. If something is breakable, I basically keep the stuff towards the bottom of the box is definitely going to be heavier, and then it gets lighter as it goes up. That's kind of like a general packing rule that I follow. Um, I don't wrap too much. I mean, if you're getting into this is a beginner episode, so you may want to maybe good advice to avoid glass jars and whatnot. You'll find many seasoned sellers that eliminate that from their sourcing altogether. Just aren't willing to deal with it anymore. The rules on that is it 3 feet, 5 feet?
3 feet.
3 feet. Glass, it has to be wrapped so securely that it can survive a 3 foot fall. That's the rule if you decide you want to sell pickles, or something like that in glass jars or whatever it may be. So it's a bit of we're kind of manipulating the inefficiencies too with uh, the dunnage from different stores. It's amazing how you learn the habits of the fulfillment centers from the stores that you order from, right? Um, and Amazon is one of the worst too. The size of you'll get a gigantic box and there's one little piece of lipstick in it, and it's just flying all over the place because they don't put enough dunnage in. Walmart, they are heavy-handed with their craft paper. I've got a ton of theirs. I think they do air pillows too. Um, Walgreens, Walgreens fulfillment center is apparently on the top of a mountain, and they will pack up your order and they will send it down the mountain, tumbling down to their delivery trucks. I think that's speculation, but based on the state of the package when I receive them, that's their process, and I've been unconvinced otherwise ever since. Yeah, so basically, it's oh, you know what? Another good tip is I started doing this and stopped rather quickly. But I usually I'll measure the box or find the measurements of the box as I receive orders, as my orders from my sourcing as they show up at the house. I'll mark the dimensions of the box real clearly on at least a side, maybe two. If I decide to break down the box, then you can just stack these boxes up and you can put it somewhere in a Sharpie, so you can see what the size of the box is. So um, if you're getting a bunch of different sizes, or if you're like me and you abandon that and you just have a one car garage full of empty boxes, that you kind of just push aside and look for the one that's right. But yeah, but that's I try to identify the size of the box. I save all of the dunnage. It's a I use the bike racks mostly because the kids try to pop the air pillows, and I can't.
Mm-hmm.
We can't be having that. They're poppable. There's poppable dunnage, and then there's daddy dunnage, and the two are separate. So
All right. So as you might be able to tell, this is something we recorded in two parts. There's different backgrounds, different shirts. I don't know if Chris had that sweet stash in the first part or not. Maybe a little bit. But let's go ahead and let's keep going. And let's talk a little bit about cash flow. Cash flow is one of those things that I think it's one of those things that you hear talked about quite often, but I think a ton of people don't necessarily really understand it. And honestly, I think maybe it is, I don't know, it's like one of those things that some people treat as a seriously academic thing when I'm not sure it really is. Because cash flow is just kind of a fancy way of saying here's how the money moves in and out of the business, and yeah, you got to track what's coming in. Like, when you sell products on Amazon, you need to track the money that's going out. And that's really it. Now, of course, you do want to come out on the positive side of that cash flow to keep your business going. The cash flow is really just it's the gas in the car that keeps it running all the time. But there are a few common challenges, I think. One, delays in Amazon payouts. Now, I am we could say hashtag blessed. We could say spoiled. I'm not, you take your pick. But I get daily payouts with no reserves, and that really is just due to the age of my account. Now, I've had some setbacks recently with gatings and things like that, but that wasn't taken away. So Amazon, if you're listening to this, don't touch it. Okay. Uh, yeah, but there are other challenges that happen that are not due to Amazon at all, which can be holding excess inventory. I have talked to way too many people who forget that you're supposed to be dating your inventory, not marrying it. They're holding on to it for 6, 8, 12, 16 months and saying, oh, well, it's going to come back. Or if I sell it now, I'm going to take a loss. Now, you already took a loss. It's already, you've got an opportunity cost that you have given up for a long time. You've got this product sitting on a shelf that is eating away at any kind of profit that may have been there because of your storage fees. And on top of that, you can't sell it at a profit anyway because that's not where the market is. One of the things I'm seeing right now, we're recording this in Q4 of 2024. It's a little bit of a uncertain time. I know a lot of people are kind of down on Amazon right now, which we've talked about at length with the FTC and a few other things that Amazon is doing. But I see way too many people get a gating email and they're just like, I'm cooked, because they've overinvested in inventory. And what I mean by that is typically in maybe one or two brands. And then they're stuck and they've got no more working capital. And then, of course, there are the unforeseen expenses. There's returns. And if you get hit with a bunch of them, that can hurt. There are refunds. There's storage fees, which you really should be able to figure out. And now there are ways to make your cash flow better, of course. You could focus on faster moving products to keep your cash flowing. I think you need to take a bit of a balanced approach, a Vanguard or an ETF style approach to your inventory. Have some faster moving products, have some that are a little slower moving. And I don't know how to allocate the funds across do you do 20% fast moving, 80%, middle to slower moving? And I don't necessarily mean like, oh, well, stuff that's just going to sell once every 3 months. I mean, items that maybe you're only going to sell 10 of a month. Okay. And then there are other ways too. If you are doing wholesale or anything like that, you may be able to get net terms, which can help with cash flow a ton. I listened to somebody, they had like 90-day net terms. You can almost get the inventory, send it to Amazon, sell through all of it before you have to pay that off. Like that would, can you imagine us getting a credit card with 90-day net terms? It would be game on.
Absolutely.
Now you're probably going to want to use a tool for managing your cash flow. And I don't mean, whatever tool you're using right now to see how many sales you have in a day. Okay. I don't care whether it's Inventory Lab, Seller Board, Boxum. Those are all fine tools. They're good tools, but you really need to have something like QuickBooks. You need to have a real tool for managing your books. I don't really know if we can do cash flow forecasting as arbitrage sellers, and I also think that might be a little bit too high level anyway. It's not really necessary in my opinion. Now, some other things you can do for cash flow is, and this can be risky, okay, is you can use things like credit cards, loans. There's Amazon lending, Lendistry. Marcus is gone now, I think. But there are ways to get, capital if you need it to cover some tight periods. But again, and we've talked about this too in the past, you've got to be incredibly careful. Paying, a 23 or 25% interest rate on some bad buys or things that you want to hold on to for 12 months is not going to be the way to go. And one of the things I would suggest is make sure that you go, and we've had Chris Potter on. Go listen to that episode. It's going to be helpful when it comes to cash flow. But Chris, I'm curious about your opinion. Like, how do you manage cash flow? What's critical about it? What do the people need to know?
I think the main thing that people need to know is you're going to have to work against some of your natural tendencies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you're going to be depending on your excitement level, your capital infusion. If you're just getting started, you're going to be eager to spend your sourcing dollars, especially first starting out. There's going to be a lot of stuff that doesn't work, and you're going to be tempted to compromise your sourcing standards because you feel like you're getting left behind, or there's a bunch of sensations like that. You're going to see a bunch of orange bars. You're going to see the sellers who you wish or want to be like, and
Mm-hmm.
you're going to feel like they're outpacing you. So what the tendency that people have is to maybe drop below the numbers that you're comfortable with, or squeeze something in. Like I remember there was a weed eater that was on clearance at Walmart, and it was when I was first starting, and the numbers weren't great, but it was a little more expensive to buy, so that I forget what it was now, but like that 15% or that 20%, it was still like $12 or $15 profit,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, I wanted it to be a good deal, so I started compromising what I knew was smart tactics, what the tactics that I needed to use um, starting out this business. But I wanted a win, and Walmart they had like 10 of them, and I was like, well, it's only 15% ROI or whatever, but that's $15, that's $150 profit. Well, let's go, and you want to, you just try to force it in when you shouldn't, so you're going to be looser with your sourcing dollars when you should guard those more carefully. And then the opposite's true once that inventory is in Amazon. You're going to be too protective, most likely, when you need to be a little bit looser. Like
Mm-hmm.
once it's in there, once that window, once you come in up against long-term storage, that's eating away at your profit. And you're going to need to fight, sunk cost fallacy, and you're going to need to fight against those numbers that you saw when you sourced it. We tend to hang on to those way too long. That's just a starting point. Like in a perfect world, yeah, you'd sell all 10 of whatever you bought at 75% ROI or whatever it is that you looked at. That's not reality. It's a dynamic marketplace. Prices are going to change. Prices are going to fluctuate. So other sellers are going to come in and they're going to change the landscape of that ASIN that you fell in love with.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to be, so you're going to be more guarded than you should be with the inventory that's in there, and it's true because you're going to be told that you make your money on the buy, and that's true. But don't let that haunt you 90 days later when you're looking at long-term storage. You need to realize that is no longer the case. The everything's changed, and you need to look at the current status and realize that getting that capital back as much as you can, even if it's now 0% ROI, is better in the long run for your
Mm-hmm.
cash flow, and for the health of your business.
Yeah. I heard Jeff Storch, which is one of the other, if you're new to selling on Amazon, if you've gotten this far with us, that's another episode that you should go and watch that we've done here on the podcast. But I saw him write one time. Someone was talking about repricing and things like that. And he put down, if I'm recalling, and Jeff, if I get this wrong, I apologize. But if I recall, he put down, your buy price doesn't matter, which I thought was a really good framing of the sunk cost fallacy, you know, because people get so stuck on that. Well, I spent this $10 on this product, and now it's selling for, a $2 loss, but oh man, I got this dollars. Your buy price doesn't matter. What matters is getting whatever capital you can back, because that is a sunk cost. You already spent the money. There's no way to get it back. Essentially lit it on fire. And now the goal of lighting that money on fire is, of course, to magically get more money, which hopefully we can do quite often. But sometimes it doesn't work that way, and you get back less. But I thought that was an interesting framing.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. You got to kind of compartmentalize. It's if you've seen the movie Memento or 50 First Dates, you need to just cut off that long-term memory, and make sure you're analyzing the current situation. It's going to help you a lot.
Exactly. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the pros and cons of online arbitrage versus other models on Amazon, and like this is enough that like I think that if certain people got into rooms together, there might actually be fistfights, because there are some people with very strong opinions all over the place. But let's talk a little bit about what all these models are, because you're gonna see people talk about OA, RA, PL, WS, or wholesale, and then you're gonna see some people talk about drop shipping. So I want to talk what these are really quickly. Private label is where you order something from a factory in another country. You put your brand on it, you build a brand story, you build out, A+ content, all of that stuff. You're actually trying to, maybe make the next Schick or Gillette. A good example of this, which is not necessarily an Amazon first brand, but a good example of this would be Dollar Shave Club. Or actually, one of my favorite stories would be Native Deodorant. Native Deodorant was started by a guy by the name Moise Ali. Came up with a brand story, wanted to do deodorant because it was something that people buy over and over again. And a lot of people are like, oh man, it's such a big brand now, etc. Not before. His first manufacturer was some lady he found on Etsy, making it out of her home and putting it into containers that he asked, he said, hey, can we just put my label on it instead of your label? And she was selling her deodorant that she made at home on Etsy. And then she sold to him in bulk until she couldn't handle the volume anymore. That's private label. It's still, in my opinion, a form of arbitrage. It's just arbitrage with a little extra. And then, of course, there's wholesale, which is also just a form of arbitrage. It's buying low, selling high, but your source is different. With retail arbitrage, online arbitrage, you're buying from retailers. With wholesale, you're actually buying from either the brand themselves. You might be buying from a distributor that's authorized by the brand. And sometimes you're buying from a middleman past the distributor. There are all these marketing companies out there that may have 5 or 10 or 15 different distributors that they work with, and they try to market the products from those distributors. The whole wholesale model is very old school. It's not, not everyone has these fancy websites. Like there's still fax machines. It's interesting, but it can be very profitable. And then we've got drop shipping. Now, a lot of people are going to say drop shipping is against Amazon terms of service. And you're partially right. Drop shipping from retailers, from Amazon, or sorry, from Sam's Club, Costco, Walmart, etc., to the end customer is absolutely against Amazon terms of service. But drop shipping from a legitimate drop shipper, which oftentimes you can find a wholesaler who will drop ship for you. That is okay as long as you follow the rules. Now, this is also not an Amazon example, but some very large businesses are actually drop shippers. Rock Auto, for example, is a drop shipper. They have deals with auto parts stores or auto parts companies and wholesalers across the country. And they've got, 500,000 auto parts, and they drop ship a lot of them from the wholesalers. Overstock.com, Wayfair.com, these places are all doing drop shipping. And they all have their name and branding on the packaging when it gets to you. And that's okay to do when it comes to Amazon as well. And then, of course, we've got the things that Chris and I talk about, mostly, which is retail arbitrage and online arbitrage, which to me, these two things are essentially the same thing, other than where you're doing them. Online arbitrage is, of course, behind the safety of a keyboard. Some of the benefits to it are that we have better access to tools. There are definitely more tools available for online arbitrage than there are for retail arbitrage. We have easier access to cashback, easier access to discount gift cards, easier access to information like where sales are happening. And we're not limited by our geographic region. There's no OA road trips happening across the country. I mean, unless you want to. I mean, you could, I guess, travel across the country and OA your way through it. But with retail arbitrage, you're actually going into the store. You're pounding the pavement. You're shaking hands with managers, which is one of the upsides to retail arbitrage. I can't shake the hand of a manager, at Walmart.com, but I can certainly walk into Walmart with a box of donuts and create a relationship to be able to go out and get discounted items or order in bulk or all of these other things. And now I would say that Chris and I may be a little biased, thinking that OA might be the better of the two routes. And so I guess I kind of want your opinion. What if you were coaching a new seller, what would you tell them to do?
Well, I mean, as far as all the models that you talked about, some combination of OA and or RA to the beginner, right? Because wholesale and private label, there's a reason that those courses are very, very expensive, because the seed money that you need to get started is going to be a lot more than RA and OA, right? And I'm not even going to talk about drop shipping because I'm not interested in walking that fine line between Amazon compliance and outside of it. So, but like wholesale and private label, like you're going to have to commit. It's gonna take some cash, and whether it's wholesale, there's probably going to be a minimum. If there isn't a stated minimum, there's probably an implied minimum to get the person to talk to you and take you seriously. There's not a sales rep that works for a wholesale company or a distributor or whatnot that's going to want to take your call, and spend some time if you're only looking to spend a couple $100, most likely. It's not impossible, but the level of rejection, not something I was interested in as a beginner. And then private label, you got to take a shot. You have to come up with the idea, and you have to do the research, and there's a lot leading up to it. Again, it can be done as a beginner, but I don't think it's why. I think there are there's a bunch of lessons that you can learn easily and affordably through online arbitrage and retail arbitrage.
Mm-hmm.
Now the comparison gets a little bit tighter, when we just narrow it down to RA and OA. The thing I like about OA, and I think what I gravitated towards, is you can cover far more ground in a much shorter period of time, right? RA and OA both have the advantage of you're able to take small bets, and you can do that over and over and over again, and it's almost, I mean, it is almost like gambling. The greatest professional gamblers, that do it for a living, their win percentage is only about 60%. So, and that's not that far off of where a successful arbitrage seller needs to be. It's probably, probably higher, but you can take some losses. You can buy something and it just doesn't work out, or there's something that no one could reasonably expect anyone to forecast or predict, and it just doesn't work out. But again, it's a small bet. You just go on to the rest of the stable of bets that you have in play, and you can become successful. But in the meantime, you are getting the reps in. You're getting your account seasoned. You're gonna get through your set of mistakes, which I think anybody that begins anything, I always think there's a certain set of mistakes that you're going to make and almost have to make, and survive. And then that kind of resets your floor and you move on from there. And as long as your mistakes aren't catastrophic, it's perfectly fine. It's not something to get down about. It's a lesson, on the way to bigger and better things. So, but yeah, I like OA because you can literally go anywhere. You can set up something like we haven't talked about Sales Gazer yet, but Chris has a product called Sales Gazer. It's free, and it basically aggregates retailers' promo emails. And it'll tell you the sales that are going on. It'll give you, you can aggregate coupon codes that are active, and you can customize your list of stores. And that could be your starting point every morning, right? No pants required. You could sit there with a cup of coffee, and pull up today's sales, and you could literally make hundreds and thousands of dollars before you put your pants on, before you finish your coffee, whatever, whatever odd, whatever casual flex we're using. So, but that's, in retail, retail arbitrage, I do like it. It has a little bit stronger treasure hunt effect to it, depending on where you are. Probably steeper discounts, and collectively less other sellers' eyes. I think most of the time,
I think
something like
so.
Walmart. Yeah, like if you're Walmart clearance, don't think that has any kind of moat, like, because Walmarts across the country are likely also liquidating their stock, and there's also Amazon sellers in those Walmarts as well. So that'll be a little bit tighter. But if you get creative, or you have some regional discount stores that are getting closeouts and shelf pulls and whatnot, there is a bit of a moat, but more of a time commitment than OA takes.
And pants. I mean, in most cases, pants are required.
That's right.
You made an incredible point about how you can take some of these losses. With private label and wholesale, it makes it a lot harder for you to create an infinite game while you are learning. Let's just say with PL, for example, a lot of people say $5,000 minimum. Some people will say that's a joke. You need $15,000 or $20,000 minimum. I think those people are wrong. I know plenty of people that have started with 5,000 and they're doing pretty solid. But if you're wrong, if you get your launch incorrect, or you trust the wrong factory, that's 5,000 is gone. And for some people, that's it. That's game over. But with online arbitrage, retail arbitrage, you can, you make these 10, 20, $50 bets. And if one doesn't work out, but you've got two or $3,000 there, uh, to kind of try to make this thing work, you can pretty easily make it an infinite game. And that's really, like, that's the point. Dylan explains it much better than I do when he comes on the show about infinite games. But yeah, that's what I like. All right, let's help people with one of the things that I think I see people have trouble with quite a bit, especially when they're new. It's where to buy from, and we all know these places, especially if you've been around for a while. But Chris, where do you go to find reliable suppliers?
It's a bit of trial and error, especially who knows how long somebody's been shopping online. You may have your own, as a consumer, you may have your own paths that you've worn through the different stores. You'll see a lot of snark once you plug into Amazon social media circles. You'll see a lot of snark about the obvious things.
Mhm.
And there's a bit of an elitism, as this kind of becomes a little more commonplace in the in the social mind frame. Um, so, but don't shy away. Don't think you need to find something extremely unique. Like common, obvious stuff can still work. Sometimes, I mean, you don't want to completely avoid it. You hear a lot of smack talk about the Walmart clearance aisle. Um, Everybody's there. There's no moat. I just said it myself, right? Um, that doesn't mean you can't make a profit, right? As long as you don't have some rigid, unrealistic ROI floor, that you're just absolutely not willing to go below. These common things, the less obvious things, there can also be a lot of room to get in and out of before anything gets bad,
Mhm.
before the numbers really get ugly. So, um, and if you're just getting started, you're going to have an issue with what you're allowed to sell. You're going to have some restrictions on your accounts as far as brands that you can sell. So you can make an argument that finding products as cheap as possible is the best protection. Um, and I don't know how much we should get into the discounts or whatnot. But that's there's way more discounts than you realize. And
Mhm.
and I don't care what experience level we're talking about. I'm saying that to myself right now. There's even more discounts. Um, but I think start with the obvious ones, and kind of get a feel for it. I think that the more times you go through Walmart and compare it to what it's selling on Amazon, it's not a bad idea to track it over time. So you can kind of see behaviors of some of these ASINs and how the third party marketplace ebbs and flows.
Mhm.
It's kind of be a bit of a voyeur. Um, and you could probably save yourself some money just by seeing different stuff, or use Keepa to kind of look back at what has happened,
Mhm.
and kind of familiarize with uh, those scenarios, different ways that things tank or kind of dip and then come back and become profitable again. And um, but yeah, don't go crazy, because there's a line. You can go too niche, right?
Mhm.
Especially if you're just getting started, you may not realize that a site is not good. If if you're not checking Scam Advisor, Trustpilot, and whatnot, you may be actually doing more harm trying to find places that other sellers haven't been to. So
Mhm.
I think the sweet spot is probably somewhere in the middle. Um, You don't shy away from the Walmarts, from the Targets. Those certain sales, certain clearances. You'll find markdowns, rollbacks, or whatever. Um, those can be good. Just be quick about it. Is probably the best advice.
Hmm.
Um, but kind of, I think that probably that middle tier. I think there's far more stores, in the B category underneath the Walmarts and the Targets. Um, that's a very, very big category. They're
Yeah.
nationwide companies that have regular sales schedules um, with less competing seller traffic.
You make a really good point. I want to kind of draw a visual. Actually, you made a couple of really good points I want to go into. Number one, you talk about that kind of B tier, that middle tier. So here's a great way to visualize it. If you go to a Walmart or you go to a Target, those are often what they call anchor stores. And then there will be a strip mall of all these other stores. Walmart will be 30 feet tall, have a big Walmart sign. Everything else is going to be 12 feet tall. It's going to have regular size signs. There's going to be the local Chinese place and then a bunch of other little stores.
And a Bob
Find the
Evans.
And a Bob Evans. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Bob Evans is hard to find here in Florida, man. There's only like one.
No,
uh
no kidding.
yeah, yeah. uh but look for those places because those places often have e-commerce sites as well. And they're
Hmm.
going to be the ones that you're going to want to spend a lot of time at. But then you talked about being a voyeur, which I think is a great idea. Now, you have to be a little careful with this, and I don't mean with the law, I just mean with how um it can become an exercise that you don't move past from. You don't move past. But you can paper trade these products. You can go and you can do did you ever dabble in like options or
Hmm.
trading, currencies? Yeah. So yeah, I paper traded for like 6 months in the US dollar against the yen or something like that. Um to prove that I could make it work, quote unquote. But you can do that with sourcing. You could go out and go to walmart.com, go to coles.com, see what's on sale, put down what the item is, the link to it, what the purchase price is, and then what the sell price is on Amazon and the date, and then check it in 2 weeks and see what happens. And if you could get it prepped and into Amazon in that 2 weeks, might be maybe a little bit longer, but what would have happened? Would you have come out positive? Would it have been a break even? Would it have been a loss? If you do that for a month and find, you know, 30, 40 different products and 70% of them are profitable, it's time to stop doing it just on paper, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's pretty good exercise. Is when you're talking about anchor stores, um, you can recreate that online.
Mhm.
Like even if you're driving by the street, just take a picture with the storefronts or whatever's in that strip.
Yeah.
There's probably going to be a shoe store. There's you throw in some Five Below locations, stuff like that. There's going to be a probably a World Market. Um, yeah, and look at that picture. Think back of what else is in that strip, and then go see what their online presence is.
Mhm.
Sign up for their emails, their promo emails. They'll probably give you a
Mhm.
welcome offer. Um, welcome offers are a very nice moat that is unique to the beginner most of the time.
Mhm.
There are some sites that have never ending welcome email codes. Gotta
Yep.
love those. Um, but that's kind of like a one time advantage, that the beginner has. And if you're a little bit email savvy, you could set yourself up to where you have several different accounts with welcome codes if it happens to be unique. Um, but yeah, so there's, take 10, 15, 20% off right from the jump of all these stores and kind of build out your B tier, build out in your mind or virtually however you want to do it, what stores are around the anchor stores, and you'll find a lot of really good sources.
Yeah.
You'll see Yankee Candles, Claire's, just little knickknacks. Yeah, just think about all the different stores that are in those strips, trailing from the anchor store, and recreate that online, and that's a really fruitful starting place.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, we could probably take this like further and further, but if you don't want to go out, take a drive down Google Maps. There's an easy way to
Hmm.
do it. And then go and use a tool like Perplexity. And for every B tier store that you write down, just be like, hey, give me 5 competitors for Claire's.
Hmm.
And it's going to give you those stores. And now for every single B tier store, you've got another 5 B tier stores. You should easily fill your roster just by doing that.
Yep. And boy, you get into Perplexity, and yeah, you could have as big a list as you will ever need.
Oh
If you
yeah,
ask a couple pretty simple questions. So
absolutely, absolutely. So we'll do another podcast once we get this new. The day we're recording this on November 19th, 2024, and as of last night, Perplexity offered uh, shopping right inside of Perplexity. So once we get that tested out for like OA, we'll probably talk about that on the podcast as well. So,
yeah.
all right, let's talk about managing your business a little bit. There is no lack of tools, for your business. You need some systems. You're going to want to scale, of course. But let's talk about like the minimum tech stack needed to be an effective seller. And Chris, I'm curious, what is your opinion on the minimum tech stack needed?
Uh, my minimum tech stack is and was and is Keepa, number one. I am a Revseller person personally. I'm basically ride or die with Revseller now. Very impressed, and I like them more the longer I've subscribed to them. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, uh, Inventory Lab, just that's just where I got started, and where I continue to be. Um, I don't have any issues that I may have are never enough for me to try to learn something new and transfer. That just seems that seems very cumbersome. So, but I've been very happy with Inventory Lab, and that comes with the scanner. So I can do Revseller and still have a scanning app if I'm doing RA here and there. And then a repricer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and there's quite a range there. This is a beginner episode, so um, I don't know if we want to give recommendations of specifics, but you can find affordable ones out there, um, and that's like we talked about before. I call it a turnstile uh, tool. To where
Mm-hmm.
once you use one, there's no going back. It's
Mm-hmm.
and you'll find it may not be obvious to the beginner, but manual repricing is a thankless task, a Sisyphean task, should we say, right? Um, and it's not sustainable at any kind of scale, especially if you're listening to this podcast, you've invested the time, just the sheer length of our episodes. Chances are you're trying to make something of this. So you're going to find that manual repricing needs to be um, done away with rather quickly. So I'd say
I would agree.
that's probably the minimum right there.
I'm actually, and this is not usually the case, but I'm going to take a little bit of even more Spartan approach. Uh, like if you absolutely need to do this on a bare bones budget, I think that you can get away with Keepa and a calculator and nothing else. Now I'm gonna make this argument, and then I'm going to also tell you why you should probably add one third thing. So Keepa, it's a non-negotiable. If you want to be serious about this business, you need to have Keepa. That data is way too valuable, and you need to learn how to use it. You do need a calculator. Now, I don't care what calculator you get. I'm a fan of Revseller. I do like Seller Amp, and they just added in AI image sourcing as of yesterday. But Revseller is going to be less expensive. They both come with free trials, so go give them a shot. I think you can do without Inventory Lab if you are willing to keep track of your cost in a spreadsheet and things like that. And you can use Send to Amazon to ship into Amazon. Um, although I probably do need to agree with you on the repricer. Even unless you only have like one or two items, it just doesn't make sense. There are repricing is such a huge task. It needs to be done so quickly that humans just cannot do it anymore. It's not really possible. And it doesn't have to be expensive either. If you're less than 10,000 a month, there are repricers out there that you can get for as low as, I think the cheapest one I know of is 27. And this will be a recommendation for Aura. Like it's just a good repricer. There are others. You don't have to use Aura. You can use other ones that are out there. But at that price, $27 a month locked in for a year, or you hit $10,000 in sales a month, it makes sense. But there are a lot of other tools that will make your life a whole heck of a lot easier. There's Inventory Lab, there's Boxum, there's Tactical Arbitrage. There is no lack of tools, but and you're going to think or be drawn to the idea that, oh, this next tool is going to be what breaks me through to the next level, or to push button profits or whatever it is. You really have to fight that urge, because it's not usually the tool, it's what you are willing and able to do with the tool that ends up creating the output. And so I think a lot of people get disappointed when they add a new tool to the arsenal, but either they don't take the time to learn it, or it just sits and collects digital dust. And then it's easy to blame the tool rather than the user.
Right.
So I want to be careful with that. Now, one other thing I want to talk about, because of course everyone as a beginner wants to go from 0 to 100 very quickly, is, in my opinion, if you want to scale up eventually, I think that you should get a prep center probably sooner than what a lot of people will tell you. Now, I am a fan of you knowing how to create a shipment. You know how to put on your labels, you know how to send the items to Amazon, how to pack them up, all of that stuff. That way, if your prep center does something wrong, you know what to do. You know what has gone wrong. However, I'm a big fan of outsourcing to a prep center as soon as you are able to hit their minimums. And I get a lot of pushback on this. Well, that's a cost I don't need to incur, et cetera, and so on. And I push back on that with, well, number one, you can, if you're in a taxable state, you can save the money on sales tax. And there's always a break even. So if, let's just say to make math easy, if you're paying $10 or 10% in sales tax, that means for every $10 you spend, you're paying $1 in sales tax. Even if it cost you $2 to get an item prepped, then it would be anything over $20 is money in your pocket. For employees you don't have to manage, boxes you don't have to source, items you don't have to put FNSKU labels on or put into poly bags or wrap in bubble or anything like that. And you could spend that time sourcing more, or if you're out of capital, you could spend that time getting better, working on things that you need to improve, or finding more capital. Like there's always things that you can do that are probably higher leverage than actually prepping products, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's, I don't know. I do kind of want to fight you on that a little bit.
Yeah, do it.
I mean, not completely. Like, I'm not going to flat out disagree with you. The one thing that I would recommend caution with is, you, and this is true for all these tools in general. For the most part, outside of, uh, definitely Keepa, like that's most of these. Most of the time, tools should be purchased uh, to make you more efficient at a process that right? Um, it shouldn't be purchased as a solution to a weakness of yours. Um, Not always catastrophic, like the most common scenario that pops into my mind is VAs. People who have frustrations sourcing this. Well, I'll just hire a VA, and that'll take care of it. It won't. Your VA is going to be a percentage less than 100% as good as you are, because you are the trainer. You don't really find um, independently skilled VAs. Few and far between, if any of them even exist. So you really need to, I would say you need to go back through, and you need to feel you're competent with a lot of the other aspects that we just talked about, especially cash flow. Because what you don't want to run into is signing up with a prep center and have the minimum staring at you month in, month out. You don't want the minimums to force you into bad buys because you need to meet a unit threshold. That's my main caution. That that you need to really you need to be competent at sourcing. You need to be competent with your cash flow, because you don't want to be overextended trying to meet a minimum. And maybe that's fine tuned in the prep center that you use. Don't sign up with somebody that, well, God, their minimum is 1,000 units a month, and I'm not sure if I can do that. Keep looking, vet a few more. You'll find minimums that are lower, and you'll find good prep centers out there that have no minimums. So take your time with that part. If you decide that like, yeah, I think I want to get started with this right away. And you're absolutely right. I mean, make sure you know how to pack your own shipments first. Even if you do it quickly, do a little bit, yourself, just to familiarize yourself with it. So,
Absolutely.
but that's the part that I would be cautious about.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. Now we should probably try to wrap this up a little bit. Now, here's one of the things I want everyone to take away. There's a ton of stuff here, and we also, Chris and I have created a veritable university of of podcast episodes that should walk you through a ton of different things that you might need help with. But one, you can do this. Like everything is figure outable, but it's going to be difficult. Doing something new is going to be hard. You're going to get overwhelmed. And there's nothing wrong with starting small, taking it slow, and allowing something to grow over time. Like don't ever let anybody either shame you or become jealous where you grow at too quick a pace, because that is a thing. There are businesses that grow too fast and then collapse under their own weight, and you don't want that to happen to your business. And if I could, here's what I would suggest actually is create yourself, make sure you're getting involved. Get involved in communities. Ask questions here under the video. Reach out to us. Get involved on Twitter, on Facebook, on School, wherever you find your people, get involved. Ask questions. And then make sure to create yourself a little bit of a challenge. I was thinking about this a little earlier today. I would suggest like, a 90-day sprint, where every single day for 90 days, you are like, I will work on my business for 90 minutes. If that's sourcing for 90 minutes, perfect. If it's sourcing for 60 minutes and spending the other 30 minutes prepping and packing, that's great. But outside of that, add in a few other things, make one social media post a day, reply to 5 people on social media, whether that's Twitter, Facebook, I don't care, so that you're also building your network. Reach out via DMs to, maybe you find the people that you build a mastermind with that way. But put yourself out there, ask questions, and do that every day for 90 days. And I think you will be amazed at where your business is, even if you haven't even opened up your seller account yet.
Yeah, and the search function is your friend. Um,
Hmm.
you likely don't have any questions, regardless of what social media group that you choose to join. There are plenty of free ones, plenty of good ones. Search through it. Chances are the question that you're curious about or the answer that you don't know and you're looking to find has been asked already. Um, and I don't just say that to be sarcastic or elitist or anything like that, but um, it you look through those because often those conversations will branch into other things or a topic that is kind of related, a little bit adjacent to it that you haven't thought of can be roped into that, right? So these conversations, it's not a matter of repetition and being a seasoned seller sick of seeing the same question. It's valuable because of the conversations that happen as a result of those questions, right?
Hmm.
Um, and it's there's also a time factor. It depends on when the question was asked. Because different people will be active in groups at different times, and
Hmm.
then people may fade away, or they may leave the group or, just not participate quite as much. So you'll get little snippets in time and you'll get advice from other people, and you could even get advice from really good sellers that don't sell anymore, but you just happen to look up the answer to a question that was asked 5 years ago, and that's still valuable advice, so you kind of get a little bit of a time capsule with that search function. um, that can be that's an entire education almost, by itself right there. But
Absolutely.
yeah, definitely get involved, um, and don't be afraid to reach out. The worst thing you can do is not ask the question that you need to ask. you know
Hmm.
so whether you think somebody's going to be mean or it's been answered a thousand times already, worst case scenario, just put it out there, start a conversation. Because here's the thing, like I'm 5 years in, Chris, you're, I don't know, 10, 12, 15, whatever you are. It's, we learn best from the people that are a couple steps ahead of us, right? So the best people that I learned from 5 years ago aren't going to be the best people for you, just for someone's just starting out to
Hmm.
learn from now, right? Because they're further advanced. um, and there's a lesson within that is, don't compare yourself. Don't compare your chapter 1 or your chapter 2 to somebody else's chapter 10 or chapter 20. um, that'll lead to chasing something that's unrealistic, or putting pressure and expectations on you that aren't necessarily fair at whatever stage you happen to be at.
Absolutely. I think that's a good place to wrap it up. Uh, I'm gonna for the quote of the week. I'm gonna bring back someone who we've not had a quote from this person in quite some time, which is rather unusual. But this is from the great James Clear, and the quote this week is: "Speed is perpetually undervalued. Starting your business today means you begin learning immediately and have more time to figure out what works. Go fast. The future is never guaranteed, and the right time may never come." I think that is very appropriate for anybody who might just be getting started, because I've seen way too many people. Matter of fact, just this past week, I've even had somebody reach out to me who said, "Hey, I've been watching and learning for years, and I wonder if it's time to get started." Well, the time to get started was actually years ago. Even if it was just a little dabbling here and there, be much further along just by getting moving. So, all right. That's the pod, guys. Good luck, and we will see you in the next episode. Thanks for listening to Clear the Shelf with Chris and Chris. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a screenshot on your phone and share to Facebook, Instagram, or your favorite FBA group, and be sure to tag me and let me know why you liked it and what you'd like to hear more from us in the future. Also, I'd like to give you some free gifts for listening. Head over to rabbittrailchallenge.com and repricerchallenge.com for some free courses to further your business. Thanks for listening.